Hey guys, Mike here. So I hope everybody's doing well today. And you see we got another green day. So yesterday was basically an oversold bounce. Today was a continuation of a move back up into certain key levels, which we're going to talk about now. And you might have noticed this morning, right, what really caused this huge move, right? And so I'm going to show you because remember, bad news for the economy, or stuff that's not good news for the economy, is great news for the stock market at this time, okay? And then we'll talk about why and stuff. That's why when you see a company announce layoffs, the stock price, soars, right? Now, that's not good for the economy, people getting laid off of a good paying job, but the stock market's like, yeah, you're cutting costs, go up, right? And so we had a huge move today off some data that had dropped this morning. So I'm going to go over that with you. And also, again, those key levels and certain stocks to watch out for, especially one that's going to be going into earnings, because if it follows the trend for the fourth time, you might see the same thing and then a big move up for sure. But I will start off with this, just asking a quick question. If I ask you guys a question, it's just simply, I like your input, right? I like to hear you guys' opinions. But this came out last night where the New York Stock Exchange is polling participants on the possibility of being able to trade stocks 24/7. So not futures, but actual stocks. So put in the bottom, is that something you would do? And how do you think that would affect the stock market? I've been thinking about this, and I'll maybe give my answer at the end. But the news that came out, what happened was you had PMI come out. Again, this is red folder news we'll get into. And so when you look, it came out lower than what they expected. Didn't go into contraction below 50, above 50's expansion, below 50's contraction. So they do it for, and it's talking about manufacturing and services data. But it came in lower than expected, and like I told the members this morning before the bell even opened, watch yields when this data drops. Red folder news, they call it red folder news for a reason, right? This is the stuff that can really pump or drop a market very, very quickly. And so what happened was yields dumped, right? Went down like almost like 1.5% very, very quickly. And it's not about the rising and the dropping of yields, it's how fast they do it. And when that happened, watch the cues. Boom, just exploded. Right, absolutely exploded off that news. And I think at one point in time we were almost up 2% on the Qs. But also, who else loves this morning thing? Small caps. That is a daily candle, not a weekly candle. That is a huge candle. It was up over 2%, sold off a little bit. But again, what are we seeing here? This one right here started turning before. We talked about this Sunday, I believe it was, or Friday, one of the videos. This one started turning before. This one started going up before the S&P and the Qs, because why? It started selling off before. It had sold off the most for sure, right? It was coming into kind of some key supports, and so it got its bounce right there. Again, I'm going to put this trend line here because now we're sitting almost right at it. We're sitting at a resistance level. This was a support level right there. We're sitting at the weekly expected move. We're actually above the weekly expected move already 2 days into the week, for crying out loud. And so we kind of seen this before. Again, you only get within the week expected move, especially for the index, between 68 to 70% of the time. Doesn't mean we got to close within that weekly expected move at all, okay? But this is the level to start watching to see if we break through this and start it back into support, which is what it was. And it's really more not just one line, it's really a range. So if you look at this range right here, again, we'll look at a couple of ranges right there. And so that's where we're at, right? So we'll get more of, it's a lot of confluence coming into the resistance right there. So you would think we will maybe get, some sell down tomorrow, since we really don't have any kind of news, which we'll talk about, that should drive the markets too much. But again, it's a big thrust, big momentum going into this, okay? Coming out of, what was fear and stuff on all the greed and indexes, coming into, what was oversold. So again, this was a big move and everything. And you can see we closed above the 100, but I did want to read something really quick, just some highlights, and this might surprise some of you, might not surprise you at all. But when it comes to that data, hey guys, before we continue, please hit that thumbs up. Really appreciate it. It helps people find the video, and think about subscribing if you like this kind of content. This comes from a chief business economist at S&P Global Market Intelligence, and he goes on to say that there was some slowdown, obviously, in the data starting the second quarter as far as the economic upturn. And what was really interesting to me was new business fell for the first time in 6 months, but more importantly, the more challenging business environment prompted companies to cut payroll numbers at a rate not seen since the global financial crisis, if you take out the pandemic lockdowns we had in 2020. The determination of demand and cooling of the labor market fed through to lower price pressures as April saw a welcome easing in rates of increase for selling prices for both goods and services. Notably, the drivers of inflation have changed. Manufacturing has now registered the steeper rate of prices increases in 3 of the past 4 months, with factory cost pressures intensifying in April amid higher raw materials and fuel prices, contrasting with the wage-related services-led price pressures seen throughout much of 2023. Now, that is what the Fed would want to see, right? They want to see people lose their jobs, right, to get this employment market loosened up, right? And they want to see us, because really, unless you kill demand, you're not going to bring any of these price increases down. That's just the way it's going to be, all right? They can't come out and say that directly, but that's just the way it is. And so keep that in mind. But let me know if any of that surprised you or anything. That I mean, comparing the Great Financial Crisis, that one kind of surprised me a little bit. But I have seen some numbers, because you look at the unemployment rate and go, I'm not seeing the unemployment rate or anywhere else. But again, that's so delayed, it ain't even funny. Like, everybody knows that is such a lagging indicator. And so I'll be very interested to see what the next employment data tells us for sure. But when you look at the S&P and things of that nature, you can see we're coming in, obviously, once again, above the weekly expected move, coming into what was support, now resistance, okay? And so we'll have to see if we can break through this. Again, nice green candle there. Another huge day for the S&P. I mean, almost every single sector was up, by the way. And so, we'll see. But again, we moved up quickly in these 2 days. So we get to see if we try to push through this right here, or try to come down and actually grab some liquidity at the bottom before moving up. Or is this all a big fake out, right? Now, you got the stochastic RSI right here. You can see it got oversold very quickly, all right? And so this is the weekly, which I would pretty much rather look at. And you can see on the other times when this has happened, when it does turn back up, is huge moves back up. But I think a lot of people were surprised how quickly this thing got oversold. And the big question is it just going to stay down here in this area, or are we going to get one of these quick, like V-shaped recovery turnarounds, right? Because right now you look at it, you think, wow, it must be V-shaped recovery. Or is it going to be like the last time where it drags down and stuff, and then we finally get a turn up? That's what we're going to find out. Now, when you look over the futures, this is what's going to be trading all night. Again, that area right there is what everybody's going to be looking at to see if we can get through this or not. That is going to be key. A lot of people are expecting a rejection there to come back down. Doesn't mean we're going to set a new lower low. That's what the market's trying to avoid and everything. But right now, we're trying to do what? Set higher highs, higher lows. Okay, so if we do come back down, do we set a higher low on this? Or, do we even make it up there tomorrow? Is that going to wait for the rest of the week? Again, you got a lot of big earnings coming out, which is going to affect all of this. You go on the NASDAQ, it's the same way, right? That white line right there to me, around 17,693, where you got those order blocks setting, which is where we started to push down on. That is going to be resistance, and it's going to be resistance until we get through it, okay? And today, I mean, this thing was cutting through everything like a hot knife through butter. We ended up passing Friday's high, prior day's high. We just move it, okay? And so we settled there for a reason. We'll see, because you got Tesla earnings, you got Meta tomorrow, right? And if those start pushing, everything else is going to push, right? You got Nvidia sitting there with another big day today. And again, this is another one. It is coming up into an area of what was support. And again, not just a line, but an area. And now resistance, okay? Around the 835 area, but anywhere, 833 to 836, just somewhere in that range. And, we'll end up, because you can see that's where it broke, down, right? And when that broke down, did it break down ever, okay? And that was support. It was resistance, then turned support, and then the breakdown area. So that's where you want to look. If we make it through that, and especially get a retest on it, and it goes, yeah, Nvidia's definitely going to continue its pump up, to say the least. But if we just kind of look at this and draw in, a little area right here, you can see that's what you're looking for tomorrow. If this decides to keep going. Again, this one's had a big move up off that low right there. And I guess, again, I always say, is it any surprise? It's Nvidia, right? And so, again, we'll get to see if this is going to be one of these suckers rallies, and it comes up there, rejects, and then just starts to sell back off, okay? Because you don't have any semiconductors reporting this week, but again, with the other big guys reporting, that's going to affect this as well. And if yields continue to go down, then especially the semis can pump. That's really the key. Watch the yields and see if they start to move up more or not. Because a lot of people are predicting like 10-year yield being at 5% or higher, so that will be catastrophic. Now, stocks, it's interesting, always like this. You had that trend line that was moving up, it broke down. This trend line right here where it bounced at, that was the original trend line, right? That we started moving up in October of 2022. And we ended up breaking above it and going that crazy run up. And then, of course, if you keep it there, you can just see right there, there's support, there's rejection, there's support. And we keep moving this out. And now, again, is support. That's why you always keep your longer term trend lines on these charts, because you never know when you start these breakdowns, you might get a bounce there, right? Trend lines actually do matter. And we'll see, if this is going to move back up to the very top of that trend line. Is that where we're heading to? But that will be, if semis continue to move up, that will be a good target. But if we start to break down and it breaks this trend line, 194 is going to be your level, and then around 178 if that happens. Okay, and again, this whole rally is led by semis and stuff, right? So that would be tough to do, but we'll get to see. Now, looking at Palantir, this is one to watch for earnings, right? It doesn't report till beginning of May, but understand what they've done in the last, I believe it's 3 earnings. They've run this thing down, right? And then you have an enormous pop on earnings. Okay, here's another one. Run it down, huge pop on earnings right there. And you can see, of course, what they've been doing. They've been running it down, right? It reports on May 6th, so that's coming up next week, if I'm not mistaken. And so, it's the same playbook. We'll get to see if you get a big pop, because obviously it's had a nice run off this bottom right here as its head and shoulders has been playing out. But again, I'll go into a couple more stocks. Anything in the defensive area, that works for the Defense Department, does what it does, like Palantir does, and we'll go into a couple others. It is, especially with all the stuff in the Middle East, is really gotten a pop big time off of this low right here. But again, what was it? It was an oversold bounce. I mean, everything was oversold. You can see as soon as it hit it, bam, it bounces like everything else. And so, a lot of damage has been done, obviously, recently to this one right here. But, if we get over this high right here, again, this up here is going to be resistance. There's no doubt about it, between like 22, 23 area. And that's right here is where everybody started shorting, right? And so, looking at it, I will say this, I've been holding this for a while, but you can see, I mean, the institutional ownership has continued to go up since August of 2023. So institutions have definitely been buying into this one for sure. So that's not a bearish thing for Palantir. And we'll get to see if the same thing is going to play out with that earnings, but I at least wanted to put it on your radar to watch out for early. But you can see, CrowdStrike, we talked about in Sunday's video, have been selling down even before the market sold down. And this is that cybersecurity area, right? Starting to heat up. Boom. It's been just killing it the last 2 days, right? And so that one's been moving up big time. You go over to Palo Alto, which we've talked about in the past. Same. This is the one that Nancy Pelosi has calls on. That one's been moving up big and weak, actually. And so, again, cybersecurity area, and there's plenty of others you can look up on this. I almost guarantee they're going to be green. But a lot of people are predicting, because what the FBI, head of the FBI talk about, watch out for cybersecurity attacks from China. And so, yeah, that's why you're seeing these stocks rally like crazy right now. And, you go into something like a SHOP. Watch SHOP here, because we talked about this head and shoulders to see if it was going to play out. Again, kind of a crooked neckline right here, but you can see where it stopped today, right? Big day-to-day. Last couple of days have been big for it. But right there, and if it can break above that, right, it can negate that head and shoulders and start to move back up. Okay, but this is what we got to watch for right here. I don't think it's any kind of shocker that it stopped right there. And so it's getting some momentum behind it. This is a fast mover when it does move, but if it rejects, watch for the head and shoulders continue to play out on SHOP. I believe they were going to report, and I think it's next week, but again, I'll put that stuff out at the end of the week and let you guys know on that one. Now, when you look, you can see earnings tomorrow. You got some big ones, right? You're going to have Boeing on there, AT&T, Humana, General Dynamics. Then you go over to the evening, Meta, right? Put in the bottom what you think Meta is going to do. A lot of people think this thing is going to pop again and gap up again. IBM, Ford, Chipotle, ServiceNow. And then you have no red folder news that's going to really affect the market. Not saying this news won't affect it in a little bit, but not red folder news. And so I don't really see the crude oil inventories obviously will affect the oil stocks at 10:30. But besides that, there's nothing out there that's really going to affect them. You have some smaller bond auctions in the afternoon. And we get to see how the market is going to digest this big 2-day move up right now with everything I showed you kind of coming into these resistance areas and things of that nature. And it also with these big earnings coming up, not just tomorrow, but Thursday, you got Microsoft, Google, some other big hitters coming up as well. Tesla obviously reporting now. I'll have to see what they did. But, this is what maybe the market's kind of waiting. You didn't get in this area for nothing to go, ooh, so maybe we come down overnight, grab some liquidity before moving up, if that is the plan for the market, and really just seeing how these heavy hitters what their earnings and guidance is telling us, because everything I put out for the morning news brief for the membership, feel free to sign up for it. Listen to the McDonald's combo. All those earnings were good. Forward guidance was raised for GM of all companies, right, and others. And so, it's just one of those things where earnings are not coming in catastrophic right now. But these are the heaviest weighted of stocks, so obviously everybody's looking to them. You would think if the other stocks are doing good, these might not be doing so bad, but we'll see. And I think that's what the market is looking for. So hope you guys got something out of it. Feel free to hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys later. And members, I'll see you in the Discord. So have a good one.